Welcome. Confused? What if nothing's wrong? We're going to be talking tonight about a new approach for dealing with confusion. I'm Rick from Thriving Now. I'm here with Kathy Vartuli from Thriving Now and the intimacydojo.com. And Kathy, I know that as people that are very solution oriented, and when you and I were talking, there's a lot of pressure, isn't there, to be decisive, to have an answer, the right answer, the one and
Immediately.
only answer immediately, tomorrow, yesterday. No, not tomorrow, yesterday.
Yes. I
I'm
should have
gonna start
anticipated that this
tapping already.
question would come up and already had my ducks in a row. I think it's just our culture is very much that there's um, a lot of accolades given to people that can make quick decisions on the fly. Like while people are shooting at us or whatever, we see movies where they're able to make like, oh, he jumped and caught the car or whatever. I don't know. Lots of fast decisions to keep up with what's going on. And I think we're also conditioned in our lives, like when we're coming up, our parents get impatient. Little kids can take 2 hours to find the right shirt. Mom and dad are like, we're late. Come on, just make a decision. Any decision. So we're not really taught to tolerate the feeling of confusion. And I think we learn to associate it with that there's something wrong or bad or lacking about ourselves if we're feeling this feeling, that we're not complete until we make a decision. As opposed to, I believe that there's a beautiful gift in some of my best growth ever has happened when I could just sit with that feeling of confusion and let myself discover who I was and what I wanted, as opposed to using my brain to leap to what I needed to do next and constant doing. And it's challenging to do that too.
So for me, what makes this a real skill is that the default way that most people deal with confusion is to go into their primitive brain. Ta-da! I was an expert at that.
Yeah.
Um, the primitive brain can make decisions, but it makes it from a very narrow standpoint. Like you said,
It's very reactive.
yeah, it's reactive. It's reacting to the pressure, the uncertainty, the discomfort of being in that place, the external world, how we're conditioned, all the tests we had to take as children, and that sense of being on the spot all the time and needing to know.
And I think one of the biggest traps there is people talk all the time about how they repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And when we're letting our primitive brain drive things, it's going to react to experiences we had when we were 3 or 5. And we're going to repeat the same pattern because it's decided that I can never leave this. It's never safe to try something new. I've got to try to overcome this, or I've got to react the way I did when I was a 3 year old. And yet, many of us want to have our world be bigger and be different and more empowered.
So our starting premise for a real skill is, okay, I feel confused. We know what that feels like. And the skill is saying, oh, well, what if there's nothing wrong here? What if this is a portal, an opportunity? Um, and even that I start building up over time the skill of recognizing that, I know that if I allow myself to go through a process here, that what will come to me very intimately, very personally, will be something that might feel like surprisingly deep and right for me wisdom, or a course of action, or even inaction in this moment, or this day, this week, that won't feel like procrastination. It'll feel like I am congruent with being here, calm and confident and clear, and not taking action, not doing something that most people would call a decision. I'm operating from a place of clarity. And that I know resonates with my well being, with a thriving life, And with other people who at least are interested in not living life by their primitive brain,
Mhm.
that the concept is not repulsive to them, that we're like, I can imagine, I can fantasize that someone would be like, no, wait a minute. If I'm confused, all I need to do is I need to be able to get to my decision right away. And these people don't know what they're talking about. Bye. Bye. Um, because that's not what we're talking about here. We're going to be engaging around the real skill, an emotional skill, using emotional technology to get you to a place that you will recognize yourself in. You'll recognize that, oh, this actually, the clarity that I have in this confusing space embodies what matters to my heart and what needs to be sensible in my head, that it takes into account my resource or lack of resource. And I haven't come to it from a place where I'm being um, pressured to be something that I'm not, or to do something that I am not clear and congruent with yet.
Yeah.
So, if that appeals to you, I invite you to quiet your phone for a bit. If you're watching the replay, pause when you need to. And I'm excited because as I practice this skill when confusion rises, which is about every hour some days, um, of doing it a little differently. Instead of letting the primitive brain go, there's something wrong, I need to solve it or fight it or whatever, I drop to a different place.
Yeah.
And Kathy is really good at this. I've seen her, watched her in very like even heart-wrenching situations or extremely challenging life situations. And there's I've I've noticed in you a real desire to come from that place, that you recognize that that's where you want to live and come from, whether it's a decision about you know your dear cat,
Yeah.
or about other changes that you may or may not want to bring up during our session.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I think that you've taught me a lot too. It's like, how can I be with the sensation? Is it tolerable enough for me to be with that confusion long enough to reach a new way of being? And when we're in reactive mode, when our survival brain is very much in control, we will fight, flight, or freeze when we feel this confusion feeling. So what fight might be like is like, I'm just going to make a decision. I'm declaring I'm right and this is the way we're going. And that tends to be very rigid. People that make a decision like that, there's not a lot of room for pivot or adjustment. They're just a bull in the china closet running full steam ahead to try to like they're fighting, but they're kind of one paced. And there's not much flexibility like, oh, I thought that would work. It's not working so well. Let me look for something else. And when we're afraid, we tend to sometimes we'll make really quick decisions. The flea will like make a panic decision, which is very, to me, it's very high pitched. It's not necessarily in my best interest or the best interest of whoever we're deciding about, but it's like I've got to make a decision quickly and run away from this feeling of confusion, or I might abdicate. I have a dear friend who's struggling with taking care of some financial stuff, and she alternates between fleeing, where she like won't even talk about it. She ignores the problem, or tries to get someone else to make the decision for her, or she'll make a quick decision that's not relevant. It doesn't really. It's like, I don't think that's really a good idea. And then sometimes she just freezes and just sits there and like is stuck with it for a while. It's really, I feel a lot of compassion, and it's just not how I don't believe that the best decisions are going to come out of fight, flight, freeze. They're not flexible. They're not self-aware. And I think on the other side of confusion is there's a treasure trove. So anytime we're learning something new or experiencing something new, we're often confused. So if you've never played chess before and someone puts a chessboard in front of you, there's that feeling of uncertainty and confusion. I don't know which one goes diagonal and which one goes up and to the left, and it's confusion. And if I can be with that confusion and keep trying and keep exploring, I might discover that I'm actually really good at chess, or that or maybe I discover I don't like chess. It doesn't matter. But if we can go through that confusion, if we can be with it, as an engineer, people will come to me with new problems, and they'll, here, you figure it out. You're the
We do
failure
some
analysis.
tapping.
Oh yes,
I
you're noticing
just
it
want
come
to.
up.
I'm noticing that, like, oh, because as soon as we're aware that there's another way, I'm recognizing like I'm not going to be perfect at this. I'm definitely going to get confused and make primitive decisions at times. I I have this week, you know, and the nice thing is that if our being knows another way, and tapping is designed to let us acknowledge something and reinforce a pathway, an energetic pathway.
Yeah,
Um, would you be willing to lead us in some tapping for
absolutely.
the what you brought up, the fight, flight, freeze way that, yeah, who hasn't? I'll do that again.
Yeah. And I love how you often talk about it's how quickly do we recognize it, and how resilient are we? It's not that we're not going to go into fight or freeze. It's how quickly can we say, "Oh, I was doing that. Can I pause? Can I readjust?" So I'd like to invite you, if you're willing. I know it's not always comfortable, but think of a time when you felt confused, and just notice that feeling in your body. Like, how did you know you were confused? It's not always a fun feeling. Take a nice deep breath. Karate chop, even though I don't like this feeling.
Even though I do not like this feeling.
And I was taught that it means that I'm incompetent
Ouch. And I was taught that it means that I'm incompetent
and I need to move quickly.
and I need to move quickly.
I either need to fight this
I either need to decide and fight it
or I need to panic, decide, and flee
or panic, decide, and flee
or freeze.
or freeze.
What if there's a new way of being with this?
What if there is a new way of being with this?
What if there's a way to find more wisdom for my life?
And I would really like to find more wisdom for my life.
Top of the head, this feeling does not feel good.
Being confused does not feel good.
Eyebrow, I was not taught to tolerate it.
I was not taught to tolerate it. I was taught it was intolerable.
So, yeah, I was taught it was intolerable.
I was taught it was intolerable
Under
to be
the eye,
confused.
what if it's the very feeling of growth?
What if it's the very feeling of growth?
Under the nose, and I've been running away from the thing that could guide me towards my growth edge.
And I've been running away from the thing that could guide me toward my growth edge.
Chin, when I'm uncertain.
I'm uncertain.
Collarbone, I'm open to new information.
I am open to new information.
Under the arm, I'm open to a new way of being.
And I could be open to a new way of being.
Top of the head, learning to tolerate this feeling
Learning to tolerate this feeling
may be the golden key
may be a golden key
to discovering myself.
to discovering myself.
Just take a nice deep breath and notice the times that you feel quite certain because you've either done this a bunch of times or someone has taught you how to do something. There's usually not a lot of awareness or flexibility. You're not looking for a different way to be.
Mm.
Inventions are not usually going to happen when we're certain of how to do something. Discovering new ways of living our lives are not going to happen when we feel very certain. But if we're calm and with the uncertainty, we're willing to see new solutions, different ways of exploring the world.
We're emotional freedom coaches, which energy in motion is emotion. We give it a label sometimes, but it's also a felt sense. That's what Kathy invited us to do, is to remember a time when we were confused, how it uniquely expresses itself in our body. And that can change from situation to situation. Because confusion energetically is chaotic. It can lead to things like analysis paralysis. Like, I'm a good thinker, so I'm going to think this, and I'm not actually making any decision, but I'm running this energy of chaos in us. Um, it's so anytime that we're confronted, yeah, it feels like it's a primitive brain kind of, oh, I'm confused. What's the noise of confusion? You could try that on for yourself.
How
That
does
was
it
my
sound
noise
in
of
your head?
confusion. I bet you'd love to be around that for like hours at a time. I'll stop there because it's upsetting to have the noise of confusion. Um, and that's where, again, like EFT tapping, and if you're new to it, thrivingnow.com/tapping, free guide. Um, you can pause and go do that, or just tap along with us. It's designed to acknowledge. And we know that recognizing the awareness and recognizing what's going on inside of us in itself is very powerful. The person that's pretending that they're not confused, if they had a safe person like Kath, they just say, hey, I'm feeling really confused. I have said that to her, and it feels good just to say it. Like, oh, okay, well, now it's out. And then the tapping can help us quiet the noise. And I'd like to do just a noise quieting tapping that might work. Feel free to change the words, even though confusion makes a lot of noise.
Even though confusion makes a lot of
I do
noise.
not like this energy.
I do not like this energy.
I don't like what it does to my brain.
I don't like what it does to my
I
brain.
don't like what it does to my body.
I don't like what it does to my body.
What if that's sort of a stuck pattern?
What if that's sort of a stuck pattern?
How do I typically react to confusion?
How do I typically react to confusion?
How would I
Like,
like to react to
how would
confusion?
I like to react to confusion?
Up ahead. Oh, I wonder if I could react by calming myself.
I wonder if I could react by calming myself,
Eyebrow, quieting the noise,
quieting the noise,
side of the eye, just turning down the volume on the sensation.
turning down the volume on the sensation.
I do not have to decide for at least 5 minutes.
I do not need to decide for at least 5 minutes.
I take a breath
I take a breath.
and I let gravity do its thing.
I let gravity do its thing.
I take a calmer breath
I take a calmer breath.
under the arm. I activate some of my resourcefulness
I activate some of my resourcefulness,
up the head, not just the problem solving parts of me,
not just the problem solving parts of me,
the parts of me that know what matters to me
the parts of me that knows what matters to me
in my core.
in my core.
Sometimes we need to stay with the calming. Sometimes, um, my partner Jem said, um, sometimes Adira just gets confused and she needs to cry and like, and I'm embracing that. If that's part of what you need to do for a moment, um, I'm going to give myself permission to do that if that's what I need to do to kind of let some of the built up energy. And but then the skill again is to recognize, oh my, I am in, and it's time. I choose to quiet the sensation. If you do that even a little bit, your primitive brain recognizes something. It says, oh, this is not a life or death emergency right this red hot minute. You'll notice I gave like 5 minutes. You could say 30 seconds. Um, you let your primitive brain know that it doesn't have to drive you right now. And it may go like, are you sure? Yep. I do not have to make a decision right this minute. I don't have to clear the confusion right now. And then once you've calmed down, there's like I believe a step of asking some better questions. Kathy, are there some questions that you I have some, but are there some questions that you
Yeah, and I one thing I want to emphasize that what you said, our survival brain likes to have decisions made. It doesn't know the difference between a saber-toothed tiger is about to eat me and I need to decide to run right or left, and I need to decide, as Jean shared in the chat, I don't have to decide if I should talk to someone or not, and maybe that doesn't need to be decided today. I got a lot of that out of my cat. Molly was very ill the last 6 months that she was alive, and I didn't know if keeping her, if I should have someone put her to sleep or if I should be with her. And it was literally like every hour, especially the last few months, was like, how about now? And just feeling into it and being with, it doesn't feel like yet, and waiting for that clarity. And she ended up passing on her own half an hour before the vet got there. Um, but it was months of this, and I would check in with Rick. I would ask for support. I had a vet. She got a vet visit over Zoom from Holland. Rick knew a very good holistic vet from Holland. So like some of the questions I ask myself, when we're confused and we're not moving ahead, it could be like, is there knowledge I'm missing? Is there something I need to look up? Maybe I just don't have enough information to know whether I should go right or left, or call the friend or not call the friend, or put this cat to sleep or not, or buy the car or not. Um, and I really like talking through things. Like Rick is one of my favorite sounding boards, because sometimes just telling him about it, I'm like, oh, or he'll point out something and I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that's really easy. Because when we spin in our heads, it's not as clear. So having that support, the time, I love Rick's analogy of it not being a ripe banana yet. Maybe we're confused because there's not an, like it hasn't ripened yet. It's like, oh, now's not the time. And having compassion, because making decisions can be real. Like putting Molly to sleep was really, really sad. I had her for 22 years. She was my buddy. And so sometimes the decisions we make, they may be the right decisions, but there may be grief or sadness or loss. And like, can I have some compassion for myself? Can I be there for myself through this really challenging thing? So, those are things I know, like to ask myself what thoughts do you have, Rick?
those are those are really powerful. Um, and the chat is open as well as um, if you're watching the replay, you can leave a comment. Um, because part of this is the shared wisdom of what questions bring me clarity. And for me, part of clarity is recognizing that sometimes a part of me is trying to solve or reconcile something that is much more nuanced.
Mm.
Um, so it's like, well, what matters to me? That I used to be very externally focused. I think many of us, they say almost all children are born with an external focus. Clarity for me is a intimate, internal, I go within. I'm not necessarily alone. Inside of me lives the the love and caring of people that I'm connected to, my spirit buddies. Um, there's a there's a going within of like what the noise that's out there. Um, am I trying to decide as if there's a right and wrong here? I what matters to me in life is emotional freedom. And so one of the things that I do a lot of tapping with clients who are in vulnerable places, let's say they've just gotten a cancer diagnosis, and they're honestly and truly confused because they have different doctors that have different attitudes. And every friend that they happen to mention this to has their own very decisive, you have to, you must, you know, it becomes very noisy very quickly for a lot of people. Not everyone, the ones that it doesn't become noisy for are really blessed because it's a very vulnerable place to have a diagnosis and be looking for treatment. And one of the things that I've noticed is that when a person goes within themselves and starts exploring, like, what matters to my heart, what matters, what kind of experience am I up for physically, and not in my fear, like, but there's a knowing in quiet. As we quiet down, we can know and feel for something that is right for us and something that is up on pause, it's not clear yet, and we can feel something that may be a really, we know that it's going to be a hard journey, but intimately we can know that it's right for us. That isn't resolving confusion to me. It is going to a place where clarity is found. It's tapping into resources that are not coming from their primitive brain. I've apologized to Kathy. She's asked me something sometime, and I know that I've come from my primitive brain, and I try to catch myself. I said, I kind of went off there, didn't I?
Humans do this.
I don't, I don't do it that often. It's not
No, you
my
do it rarely.
habitual pattern, but like in 14 years together, there are times when something is triggering to me and I'm coming from my primitive brain. Um, with Molly and your cat, I wasn't. I've I knew when you were in your clarity because you ring. When you're in your clarity, you ring. And I think that that's part of us all getting this skill and the experience of like, oh, I have my clarity for right now. I have my clarity for right now. It may extend for a bit of time in the future. It certainly has, I believe, if I get clarity that I am going to do or not do for right now, and all of a sudden I get a big input of have tos and shoulds coming in, and it makes me wonky. I start getting confused. The great news about clarity is it doesn't have to be defensive. It's like, oh, I'm confused. What do? I drop back into my clarity. I get right distance, right depth from the noise. I do the practices, it could be walking or meditation and tapping and grounding exercises, yoga, listening to some music, and then getting to a place where we have something that feels like clear for now. This is what's right for me for now.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's like a meditation as we walk through life. Like, what is right for me right now? How about now? And I love that you emphasize the pause. Like, there are times when we want to make a quick decision, we want to have this resolved, and if it's not clear, can we just pause and breathe and be with it? It's I imagine one of the toughest things to learn because it sounds simple, but it's not easy. But when we can do that, we have a lot of power in where our end life ends up versus where we're ping ponging off of everything that happened to us. And oh, that reminds me of that old trauma, and that reminds me of that. And I'm just trying to jump from one decision to another to never have to be in that discomfort.
And if decisions are a struggle, one of the reframes can be, what am I clear about right now?
Mhm.
Something that matters to me and what moves me or keeps me grounded in that place. So if my well-being and survival matter to me, what is it in this menu of possibilities allows me to take or stay in a place where I feel grounded in my well-being, or it moves me in that direction. This and again, like our I'm not arguing with culture. I'm not arguing with decisiveness. It's a great skill. Um, and I think it gets applied to things like our health and our well-being, our business, our life, our relationships that are a bit like, I've decided that on Sunday it's going to be sunny and 71 degrees and it will not rain all day long. It's it's like, wait a minute, it's a Tuesday. You're deciding that Sunday it's going to be, and that's where the primitive brain doesn't leave room for from yes to yes to yes to yes. It doesn't leave room for clarity. It needs an, a, a place to run, a place to defend, a place to insist, a place to hide. It really, or someone to hide and fawn to. It really does. Like those are its choices. And um,
Yeah, I think that if we're feeling depressed and we're having trouble making decisions, there's a wisdom in that. I mean, most of us, I don't think people try to stay depressed, but in the moment, if we're depressed, making a decision, like if I'm living in my cave and take us back 30,000 years, and I decide to go out and gather when I'm already emotionally or physically drained, I don't have the resources to take care of some of the things that are happening. So me being more passive and having trouble deciding is actually a way for me to be safe. It's like, oh, I'm going to be quiet and still right now. Something's happening, some either old trauma, chemical imbalance, something's happening. So my system is not operating at peak performance, and leaving and making decisions and taking action. I may not be deciding from the best place, or I may not have the resources to follow through with the decisions I made in a way that's really nurturing for myself. When I've had periods in my life where I was really depressed, and I spent a lot of those times beating myself up for being depressed and not feeling better. And I wish I'd had a little more compassion for myself, like, oh, this is actually a survival mechanism that I'm having trouble making decisions. It's actually really, really smart in this moment for me to stay a little more still. And I get that our culture is not someone like, oh, you're having a rough time, just take your time getting over it. Our culture is like, come on, like you broke your leg, walk it off, come on. So like, and that's our culture,
do it. Can we do
sadly.
it? Can we do a tapping
Yeah.
on like that? Um, that when we start getting that feeling that there's an opportunity there, even though it seems to go against our conditioning. Does that does that
Yeah, I think
feel?
so. Like the when we get which either are we talking
It
about
goes back
depression or
to, what if there's
confusion?
nothing wrong? I'm
Yeah.
confused. Well, what if there's nothing wrong?
Yeah. So nice deep breath, karate chop. Even though I sometimes feel very confused,
Even though sometimes I do feel really confused
and I feel like there is something wrong with me,
and I feel like there's something wrong with me
and
or
I have to
wrong with
fix.
the
Yeah,
world.
and I have to fix it right away.
I have to fix it right away or else.
What if there's nothing wrong?
What if there's nothing actually wrong?
What if in this moment I don't have clarity?
What if in this moment I definitely do not have clarity
And my body is recognizing that.
and my body is really aware of that?
Top of the head, I've been taught that a good person would make a decision right away.
A good person will make a decision right away,
Eyebrow, I
the
should
right
know the
decision.
answer.
I should know the absolute answer.
Side of the eye, I should have known you were going to pose this question to me before you even said it.
I should know you were going to pose this question before you even said it.
Under the eye, I feel ashamed that I
Makes
don't
me
know
feel
the
sick to my
answer.
stomach.
Yeah. I feel ashamed that I don't know the answer.
I feel ashamed that I don't know the answer.
Under the nose, and that's old conditioning.
And that's old conditioning.
Chin, some of us had parents and teachers that were really overwhelmed.
Some of us had parents and teachers who were really overwhelmed,
Collarbone and overwhelmed people sometimes blame those around them.
and overwhelmed people do blame those around them.
Under the arm, they say, you should have known.
You should have known.
Top of the head, how can you not make a decision?
How can you not make a decision?
Eyebrow, what's wrong with you?
What is wrong with you?
Side of the eye, grow up and make a decision.
Grow up and make a decision.
Under the eye, and you can answer them now and say, I'm growing up and I'm going to be with this confusion.
I am growing up and I'm going to be with this confusion because that's what's right for me.
Under the nose, for right now, I'm not sure.
For right now, I'm not sure.
Chin, and that is the truth.
And I may never even be sure.
Collarbone, I can just breathe with this confusion.
I can breathe with this confusion.
Under the arm and see what solution the universe comes up with.
Yeah. See what solution and perspective the universe can come up with.
Top of the head, I can even ask the universe for help.
Ooh, I could even ask the universe for help.
So, I just I love this tapping. I just want to lead one quick round through this if it's okay, Rick. Karate chop. Hey universe,
Hey, universe,
I have some confusion,
I have some confusion
and I would love your help knowing what's right to do.
and I would love your help knowing what's right to do. If
If
it's,
the Yeah,
go
if
ahead.
there's a decision I should make,
If there's a decision I'm to make,
could you please give me a clear sign?
please give me a clear sign.
Top of the head, I'm talking neon sign kind of sign.
Uh, neon signs, very visible.
Yes. Eyebrow, burning bushes can work.
I don't know. I can't even say that one. I don't want any burning bushes.
Side of the eye, I'm leaning towards the neon sign.
Definitely leaning toward neon signs.
Under the eye, are you supposed to run towards or away from burning bushes?
No burning bushes.
I don't know. So let's
Too
skip the
many
burning
burning
bush.
bushes.
Let's skip the burning bush.
Yeah. I appreciate knowing that I don't need a burning bush.
Chin. But I would really love you to send me a sign,
I'd really love you to send me a sign
collarbone, and for you to draw my attention to it
and for you to draw my attention to it.
under the arm, because I can be a little bit slow at times.
I can be a little slow and confused at times.
Top of the head, I'd really love your help.
I'd really love your help.
So take a nice deep breath. And sometimes asking that will help your brain notice when there's clear signs that you should make a decision one way or the other, or that you're being invited in a certain direction. And sometimes not, but I love at least asking. If we don't ask, then often the universe doesn't help us as often. Like it's not as clear. Our brains may not let the information in.
I'll be honest, I had a lot of resistance
Hmm.
to that. I think I've got a lot of experience where I've asked the universe for that kind of neon sign, and it wasn't coming and wasn't coming and wasn't coming. And I wanted something decisive. I wanted something
Yeah.
that made it so like the universe told me to do this, and I am trusting the universe because I have the neon sign.
And sometimes the
I,
sign is
I,
there is no sign.
right.
It's like there's not
And
a decision to make here yet.
and I love that. And I can feel like I really appreciate those kinds of signs. Um, I find, and again, like this is a matter of style and personality and
Yeah,
like
choose what you like and
where your
toss the rest.
susceptibilities are. One of the things that I all often need to do when I'm confused is to perceive it from another vantage point. Like that's what's really helpful to me. That's what I often pray and ask for is how how might I see this in a
Different.
way that gives me clarity, in a way that helps me know um, both the deeper and the broader and the more intimate perspective on what's happening. Because I'm not necessarily, when I'm confused, if I'm trying to, again, like get to a decision, there's, I'm still trapped in like now I'm using different thinking. I'm using my spiritual asking to try to make a decision, but there's still like I'm going from confusion to trying to make a decision. And for me, deciding is different than clarity. Clarity is more ecosystem. It's more what matters to me. What is the step that I'm taking in the midst of a lot of other things that are happening? Um, there's less defensiveness, which I have a tendency to do. Like if the universe tells me, here's my neon sign, you do this. Well, now I'm really invested because the universe told me this, and that can feel to my body the same way. As Gene said, sometimes the universe whispers, and I like that. Um, like one of mine might be like this, if you're willing to echo, like
Hmm.
I'm here and I'm confused.
I'm here and I'm confused.
Eyebrow. I see the black and white.
I see the black and white.
I really feel the black and white in this.
I really feel the black and white in this.
Under there, I can't reconcile the black and white.
I can't reconcile the black and white.
Under those, I'm struggling with the black and white of this,
I'm struggling with the black and white of this,
and the right and wrong of this,
the right and wrong of this,
the success and failure.
the success and failure.
And I'd like a non-primitive brain perspective
I'd like a non-primitive brain to perspective
to see the ecosystem with more clarity
to see the ecosystem with more clarity
and my place in it right now.
and my place in it right now.
And then I'll quiet and and sometimes what I'll get is time to go for a walk,
Mhm.
whisper, an impulse. Um, deep clarity can be from step to step to step. Um, and one of the things I'm very grateful to my connection to a broader, a broader ecology, a broader spiritual awareness, is that I feel like our an ecosystem takes into account a lot of different needs, some of them competing, you know, um, some of time there's synergies that you're not even aware of, right? Like the way that fungi work with our trees and provide connection and communication underneath the earth is not something that's obvious until it is. And then when it is, you start noticing it. Our connectedness, our below the noise, we can feel like, oh, this matters to me. And right now, I'm positioned in a place where what matters to me is a lived experience. If you're in a situation where you have a lot of energy coming your way that is not right for you, but what matters to you is clarity and emotional freedom, And you're not needing to be belligerent or hiding. You can just be clear. Like, I'm really clear. Emotional freedom matters to me.
Mhm.
That I'm not saying it needs to be matter to anyone else. It matters to me. Safety, respect, they really matter to me. And I noticed that um, that goes into the skill of being calm and confident. When I'm quiet enough, calmed my confusion enough, not solved it, not made it less uncertain, but there's then a rising from our core of like what really matters to me. What are the things that are part of that are so interwoven into what I stand for, my integrity, that anything that I'm doing or saying or wanting to be, I want it to rise from that place. Safety matters to me. So, for example, I can get really clear inside myself, but not necessarily want to share it or feel guided to share it. Like sharing is a very intimate thing that can feel very confusing these days. Like to what extent we we choose to share. I have that client with the cancer diagnosis, um, did a lot of sharing out of fear, and now that she's actually really living much more so in her clarity, there's an awareness like, yeah, um, I'm clear that some people are not the type, not oriented in a way that they can be nourishing and helpful to me. Um, and there's recalibration going on. A lot of words there. You want to reflect something, and then we'll take a quick break and do some tapping with folks if they'd like.
Yeah, I think we've given you a lot of perspectives, and it can be hard to pull that together. I really love when my clarity is spiritual and in my body and it aligns with what my brain knows. I think we are given brains for a
Mm,
reason. Um, and sometimes solutions are not always the most logical. So, because we can think things that we could logic through, we might have already discovered. So, it's okay to like explore them and like find out more, be curious. We don't have to jump on something. If we see the neon sign, maybe it's saying turn here or investigate this and see if it's right for you. So, and when I feel in my body and I'm like, oh, this feels pretty good, I like to try, especially if it's not a fast decision I have to make, I like to sit with it. I don't have to the very instant it felt that it was right for for me to call the vet for Molly. Luckily she wasn't suffering, so I could like sit with it and I could call Rick and I took a brief nap and I prayed about it because I wanted to make sure it wasn't a I think that sometimes what's right for us changes. We have free will. So what's right in this moment may not feel as right 10 minutes from now. So I like solutions that are a little more long term. So as we're talking about this, you may feel like, oh, this is not like a clear ABC kind of thing. And it isn't. It's about feeling into each moment and being with yourself and not abandoning yourself when you feel confused. And when we come back for break, we want to talk a little bit about how you can build up this tolerance for the feeling of confusion. Because I think that when we're not as reactive to it, we can kind of, I imagine it's like we're kind of, instead of trying to run across the surface of the water, we're letting ourselves sink through and discovering this whole new kingdom. And we're like, oh, there's all these other options that I couldn't see when I was trying to run away from this feeling. And I think there's a lot of magic in those spaces where we can just be okay. I can be with my confusion, I can be with myself in this confusion, and it's going to be okay, and I can let the right answer come to me and kind of evolve. Often I really do believe the universe abhors a vacuum, so if we haven't made a decision, if we're kind of being with it, sometimes some really amazing things come forward. So I'd just like to invite you to play with that space a little bit.
we take a 7-minute break.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. And if you're listening to the recording, we invite you to take a break too. Welcome back. Hmm. Kathy, there was some things that you wanted to focus on before we
Yeah,
bring
just
our volunteers.
briefly. When we're not used to feeling confusion, or we're associating it with something we need to run away from, it can be hard to be there with those feelings. So one thing we can do is train our brain to realize it's not so bad. And one of the ways you can do that is by brief, like just like if you're trying to do anything new, you don't need to go to the gym for the first time for 2 hours and lift the really heavy weights and beat yourself up for not doing more. Instead, if you do, just like sometimes I'll just do 20 seconds. I'd like to be with this feeling and breathe for 20 seconds, and then then I can distract myself for a little bit. Then I can come back and do another 20 seconds. All I'm doing is showing my survival brain I can feel a little bit of it and it's okay. And I really try to notice that I'm safe when I do it, get myself some support, whether I give it or someone else gives it. And then I celebrate that I did it. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to be with this feeling for 20 seconds. It doesn't actually feel great, but it's not actually harming me in any way. Oh, I did that. So now I have a little more resilience. I've taught my system that 20 seconds is okay. And impulses happen when we don't have any time for our cognitive brain to go in there. So even 20 seconds can give us a world of space to go, oh, I need to call someone for support, or I need to not make this decision right now, even though I want to. So maybe I better go distract myself and go watch Ted Lasso. It's my new favorite show, Ted Lasso. If you haven't seen it, highly recommended. But like, it's okay to like, you don't have to just be there with it breathing. I didn't spend 6 months with Molly just breathing and I don't know what to do, but I would check in pretty frequently and I would try to be really grounded. So it helped me build up this feeling of, oh, I can be with this feeling. The world isn't falling apart. I'm not actually melting, even though it sometimes feels like it. And I can deal with this. So it gave me some resilience around it. So,
Shall we do just one more round of invitation, inviting our body to be
yeah.
with the feeling,
Yeah. Are you
and
leading or am
being
I?
with it is like I'm with it, and being open to it, the sensation calming, what I would call calming, not totally calm and gone and like still waters, but starting the trend from being like confusion can head into overwhelm, and confusion can go into toward this clarity, a step toward clarity, baby step toward clarity and calm
Yeah. Are you
while being with
leading
the
that or
feeling.
am I doing it?
I'd love for you to.
Okay.
I'd like to hear what in my being what you come up with around that.
None of us know until it happens. So, karate chop. Even though I've learned to run away from this feeling,
Even though I've learned to run away from the feeling.
and I don't especially like feeling confused.
And I do not especially like feeling confused.
The truth is, confusion doesn't harm me.
The truth is, confusion doesn't harm me.
It's a sensation,
It's sensation,
it's an experience.
it's an experience.
My stories around confusion make me scared.
My stories about confusion make me scared.
Top of the head, feeling confusion is just a feeling.
Feeling confusion is just a feeling.
Eyebrow, I can get better at feeling it.
I can get better at feeling it.
Side of the eye. And my stories about confusion make me really scared.
And my stories about confusion make me really scared.
Under the eye, my fears around people's judgments make me scared.
Fears about other people's judgments make me scared.
Under the nose, this sensation is not actually harming me.
Sensation is not actually harming me.
Chin, I'm getting agitated because I think it's scary.
I'm getting agitated and overwhelmed because I think it's scary.
Collarbone, not because this feeling is actually harming me.
This feeling actually isn't harming me, it's
Under the
calling
arm,
me.
yeah. Under the arm, and I'd like to learn to be with this feeling.
And I'd like the what?
I'd like to be able to learn to be with this feeling.
I'd like to be able to learn to be with this feeling
Top of the
skillfully.
head. Yeah, top of the head. So I can find my own true clarity.
So I can find my own true clarity.
Just take a gentle breath. We often think a feeling, a sensation is harming us because our survival brain is like, that doesn't feel good, I should run away. Versus, oh, it doesn't feel good. And, like putting your hand on a hot stove, it doesn't feel good. You should move your hand. You should run away from the hot stove. Sensation of emotions in our body is just a sensation. And when we're with them, we often get to the other side much more quickly. When we're not trying to get rid of
Yeah.
them, they pass much quicker than we think.
So there was a message in the chat. It's not off topic. Person who wrote it, and I'm inviting us, like, there's a concept, confusion because you haven't made a decision. And then there's a way of living, which is I am exploring and finding my clarity, and that tunes my who I am, my state of being, and I will take an action, including the pause or the nap from that state of being. For me, the whole energy about decision, I saw someone say that the root of decide is to kill off any other option. It is to cut off,
Side, yeah, kill.
to cut off any other option. And when it comes to almost anything that matters to me, decisions are not really where I live. It's like what can I who can I be right now? What resources do I have? What matters to me? What feels congruent? What actions feel congruent? Um, and it gets us out of the realm of decisions and right and wrong and failure and success and um, the loss of freedom. And like there's an energy for me if I've decided to do something that I immediately in my nervous system feels less free. Immediately, I've decided I am going to I immediately feel less free. I feel bonded and in bondage to that. The difference of like, I'm really clear that this would matter to me and that it's worth taking a step and another step and another step. And like my morning mile, I think I'm on like coming up on day 300 in a row. And it was because I got clarity about things that mattered to me. I didn't decide I was going to walk a mile every day because I assure you, the freedom part of me would have strangled me almost to death to make sure that that didn't happen pretty regularly so that I wasn't feeling like I had to. Maybe that's just me. I guess that people that are attracted to emotional freedom, a way of being and taking inspired action. Clarity and action is different from um, decisiveness. And um, there's just an energetic difference to me. Um, and there are times when once we've cut the tree down, the tree's down. You can't take a 200-year-old oak tree and cut it off. But if you reach that decision through clarity and you're really congruent with that action, it it feels to me different. It is one of those sacred moments where you won't be going back to having this tree or this marriage or whatever it is, or your gallbladder, right? or, uh, there is a moment when you really have gotten the clarity that the next action is one that isn't necessarily reversible, but you haven't lived based upon, I'm going in this direction and nothing is going to stop me unless I fail. You've gone from step to yes to yes to yes to yes to yes, and then the tree is The gallbladder is out and I take a next yes and a yes and a yes and a yes and a yes. That is very different to me than saying well before the first 10 yeses, well, I've decided to get my gallbladder out because that's, there. And for some people that works really well for their nature. It doesn't for me. Haha. Okay. Um, would you, where does commitment come in? For me, uh, I use the term devotion, and devotion is something that matters to me. I'm so clear. It matters to me that much. Like I'm devoted to the kinship with Kathy. You all can feel it, no doubt. I do not have a commitment. To me, a commitment is different than a devotional relationship because it comes from a clarity of heart and mind and body about what matters and what's worth cultivating and what's worth doing when it's hard. What, you know, it's stacked on things that matter rather than, and again, I'm so freedom oriented. For some people, commitment is where it's at. Like, I will die on this hill. It's till death do us part, damn it. And I, please let it come soon. Um, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is a big difference. But a commitment to me means I am declaring now for all the way in the future versus I'm really getting clear on what I want in the world, and that may look different later. Next week, my caring, I in fact have bought him a couple times. I've bought him birthday gifts that I kept for myself because they were better for me, and he still loves me. So, um, it's like that may be weird, but it's like we love each other and we're there for each other and we want the best for each other. And that's not like I promise to show up every day at 6 o'clock and call. That seems more rigid to me versus how does it feel right for me to show my love today? And it might be, oh, I know he's really busy. I'm gonna just send him love from here quietly. Or it might be I'm gonna get on the plane to give him my left kidney because he needs it. Like, we have different it can be in the moment what's needed. And I like that kind of flow better. So
Would you like to work with our volunteer?
yes, I'm gonna ask you to unmute. Am I saying it right, Condi?
Is Condi.
Hi Condi, how are you?
I was doing great at the beginning of this until I stepped on a landmine of feelings that
Yeah.
came up that kind of exploded on me.
Hmm.
It's like, kind of like
Dust yourself off a little. Well, the
I,
landmine was already there, and
yeah, no,
it
I
can
know
be good to find it.
it is good. And I mentioned in the chat that I realized recently that I was creating confusion
Hmm.
for myself by just overcommitting, signing up for challenges, signing up for this thing and that class and this class, and just spreading myself way too thin. And that created a lot of stress and chaos.
I love that you brought this up because confusion can also be a way we control and avoid feeling things. Because if I'm confused, I can't make decisions. I'm so distracted by everything around me, I can't actually feel me right now.
Right.
So, if you let yourself actually slow down, what do you think you might feel
Um,
or face?
Anger, I think.
Okay.
What came up for me, because Rick kept kept saying right or wrong, and this is something that my mom would say to me that would just like take away any decision I might want to make, because you already know what the decision is, what the answer is going to be.
The arbiter has already decided.
You're not going to say something like, well, wrong in this case, because it wasn't safe. And
Oh,
it was the way that I kept myself safe
yeah,
growing up, by just being really compliant. And in that, I too was not taught how to make decisions. And
yeah.
so it wasn't until I was an adult that I was, given this choice of making decisions. Um, and wasn't very good at it. It was overwhelming. It was scary. I would get angry.
Yeah.
And the anger again was coming from this place with my mom and the trauma that I suffered earlier with
Yeah.
her.
Would it be okay if we did a little tapping and tried to clear some of that
Oh, I don't
trauma?
know. I really want to hang on to this.
Okay, you certainly can.
I'm kidding. I was
I was pretty
joking.
sure, but I don't want to ever push. So can you
Yes,
think of
please.
a time when she was like right or wrong and you were like this kid trying to like, oh, I got to be compliant?
Oh, yeah. When she decided I was going to get married at 15. Yeah. Yeah. That would be it.
So thank you for being willing to share this and tap through this. Um, so how would it feel if you and I go back, you as an adult and I go back to that 15-year-old? And what I'd like to do is I'd like to have you hand her this remote. It has a big red button in the center.
Okay.
And when she pushes that, it freezes your mom. It doesn't hurt her, it freezes anyone else in the room. Can she
Okay.
do that? And we're going to have Rick take your mom very gently by the elbows, lift her off, and take her away so she's not right in front of you.
Done.
Maybe you can do some gentle tapping on her if that feels okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, can we ask your 15-year-old if she's okay, if she'd be willing to do some silly tapping stuff with us?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'd love for you to tap on yourself now, just like you normally would.
Okay.
But in your mind, just notice that 15-year-old's tapping along too.
Okay.
Karate chop. Hey, sweetheart.
Hey, sweetheart.
I am so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
You should never have had to face this.
You shouldn't have had to have faced this.
And I really get why you're angry.
And I really get why you're angry.
Right or wrong is not a good way to push people.
Right or wrong is not a good way to push people.
And mom pushed hard.
And mom pushed hard.
About really big things.
About really big things.
And you never got a chance to learn how to make decisions.
And I never got a chance to learn how to make decisions.
I have really good news for you.
I have really good news for you.
We made it through.
We made it through.
You were really smart back then.
You were really smart back then.
And you got us through this.
And you got us through this.
Top of the head. I know we don't do so well with making decisions.
I know we don't do so well making decisions.
Eyebrow, and there's a lot of anger buried in here.
And there's a lot of anger buried in here.
Side of the eye, but because you were so smart.
But because you were so smart.
Under the eye, and you got us through till now.
And you got us through till now.
Under the nose, we get to learn how to do these things.
We get to learn how to do these things.
Chin, you saved us.
You saved us.
Collarbone, I'm so grateful to you.
I'm so grateful to you.
Under the arm, and I'm so sorry you had to face all that.
And I'm so sorry you had to face that.
Top of the head, I've come back through time.
I've come back through time.
Eyebrow, to be here with you.
To be here with you now.
Side of the eye, and help you walk away from the space.
And help you walk away from space.
Under the eye, I am so sorry.
So sorry.
Under the nose, you deserve better.
You deserve better.
Chin, and I would love your help creating better.
And I would love your help creating better.
Collarbone, it was really smart to be compliant back then.
It's really smart to be compliant back then.
Under the arm, and you don't have to be compliant anymore.
You don't have to be compliant anymore.
Top of the head, I love your power and your passion.
I love your power and your passion.
We can do this together.
We can do this together.
And just take a gentle breath. You're doing great. What are you noticing right now?
Sadness.
Okay. Can you just put your hand on your heart and just breathe in that sadness for a moment?
Yeah.
You have good reason to feel sad. Is there anything in that sadness would like to say?
You're worthy. you're safe.
Mm,
It's okay now.
yeah. Would it be okay to do a little more tapping with that 15-year-old?
Yeah.
Karate chop. Hey, sweetheart,
Hey, sweetheart,
you are worthy.
you are worthy.
It's okay now.
It's okay now.
We did it.
We did it.
And you know what?
You know what?
I realized I'm not really good at making decisions.
I realized I'm not very good at making decisions.
I distract myself really badly.
I distract myself really badly.
I'm wondering if you might be able to help me
I'm wondering if you might be able to help me
because you have some clarity.
because you have some clarity.
I had to bury it all those years ago,
I had to bury it all those years ago.
and I think we should reclaim it now.
And I think we should reclaim it now.
Top of the head, you knew what she was doing was wrong.
You knew what she was doing was wrong.
Eyebrow, I love your clarity.
I love your clarity.
Side of the eye, we couldn't hold on to it back then.
We couldn't hold on to it back then.
Under the eye, it would not have been good.
It would not have been good.
Under the nose, you were so smart.
You were so smart.
Chin, but it was never really gone.
But it was never really gone.
Collarbone, we can invite it back.
We can invite it back.
Under the arm, would you help me wield this clarity?
Would you help me wield this clarity?
Top of the head, so I don't have to distract myself anymore.
So I don't have to distract myself anymore.
So we can make really good decisions together.
So we can make really good decisions together.
Just take a gentle breath. Just notice what you, yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't feel angry, like hot, angry. Doesn't feel angry anymore.
There may be some anger still in there, and it's okay. Like sometimes it'll burble up as it's healing, just kind of like if you got some splinters under your skin.
Right.
But I think because you have the cognitive, you understand what's happening now. You can invite that part of you forward. And have you heard, Reed and I have a session on body yes, body no.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so this is one of the best things Rick ever taught me. It was to me like the keys to the kingdom, because I grew up with a very controlling father, and I liked what he liked. I didn't know how I had a therapist ask me how I liked my scrambled egg or how I liked my eggs in the morning, and I was like, however the person I'm dating likes them. And the therapist's like, no, how do you like it? And I'm like, yeah, whoever I'm dating, if they like them scrambled, that's how I like them. And he's like, I want you to go home and try for 5 days, try 5 different kinds of eggs and see which, and it was so hard. It was like physically hard on my body. And Rick has what do you call it? Body yes, body no. And we've kind of morphed it a little bit since then, but it's basically calibrating your body to learn how your body signals yeses and nos. And for people that have had that suppressed for a long time, I didn't know how to listen until I calibrated that. And I believe it's in the center. Is that true, Rick? The body yes, body no.
Should be one of the member libraries on thrivingnow.com.
It's really
If you're a
powerful.
circle member.
Yeah. It can help you learn how your body signals this. And when we've had experiences where we had to repress that knowledge, to me, it was like, oh my God, my body's been talking to me this whole time. And I think a lot of times pains and aches and other things going on come up because we're just been ignoring it for so long, and it just keeps turning up the volume. Right. As Rick says, it's like a little kid going, I have to pee. I have to pee. And then it's throwing a temper tantrum, and our body's like, why are you never listening to me? But I really love that approach, and it gave me so much quiet clarity. I couldn't make decisions out of the top of my brain. I used to analyze forever, and then I still wouldn't know. And it just gave me a connection and a truth. And I would invite when you go through that, if you go through that, to go through, like, invite your 15-year-old to be present with that. Okay. So that she can help reclaim. Because I think there's a lot of power there. I mean, I could feel this like passion and like, no, this is not right. Don't do this to me kind of feeling. I don't know if that resonates, but.
Yeah, no, it does. Thank you, Kathy. And
how are you feeling?
That resource.
Yeah.
I feel a lot better. Like I said, I was surprised that it's just like, kind of like, but also very happy that it did,
Yeah.
because I know it's something that's been blocking me.
Yeah. But
Um,
and when we're so busy and distracted, we don't really use our time well. We're so busy running from thing to thing, and we're not doing any of the things. And it's not a very fulfilling life,
no, not doing any of things well.
right? So if you notice that pattern coming up, realize that there's probably part of you feeling scared about making a decision or feeling something. So, yeah, that was really beautiful. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
able to share that.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah, lower your hand.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you all. In the few minutes that we have, I'd just like to kind of look at the landscape again. So Kathy reminded us that our our body has communication for us that can help us make a decision. It can help us know like what is definitely not a yes for us. We can start feeling into like what is a yes. That is clarity. When I talk about acting from clarity, it's from yes to yes to yes. The no is an opportunity to pause and figure out, sometimes to set a boundary to get right distance. So confusion, it's an asking. Um, Someone put in the chat, the body whispers before it shouts. Yeah, but if there's a lot of shouting coming at us, if we're not feeling in a safe place, it's very hard, I believe, my experience, to hear the whisper. And if we know that there's whispers, hey, the first time, and I love the look on your face, Kathy, like when you realize that there is information that is really good, useful, and surprisingly wise that can whisper from your guidance system. And yes, sometimes it really is an A or B decision. You know, you're at an intersection, it's either stay there, right, left, go backwards. Maybe there's 100 other choices too, but like it can feel like that's your decision. I believe that more of a thriving life, one of the things that's a real skill is thinking about like thinking and feeling into what is a thriving life for me. And so if there's a lot of confusion, if that's not your sweet spot, what would be? Like for me, clarity, not just calm, but calm and confident. Like there are things that matters to me. There are things that rise up. And I know it's my job to go there. Sometimes you find people. I'm really blessed to have Kathy in my life and a few other precious people that help me when I'm in that noisy place to to drop back into a place where I'm calming and I can get that clarity. They'll even ask me without impatience, well, what do you feel would be right for you? What's your yes here? What matters to you? And they know me and they can reflect back to me. If we cultivate that for ourselves, then we can actually show up for another person because we know that a fast decision that comes from clarity will have a different feeling than a fast decision made from, oh my God, I've got to decide now, or they're going to just, you know, we're going to get punished, we're going to get pressured, what have you. Do you understand? I hope that that's a felt experience enough that we're like, oh, yeah, I know what decisions are like when I see other people make them and when I make them, when they're made from primitive brain. Oh, with just a little bit of skill and intention, I can start changing that. Confusion is, there's nothing wrong, but it is a call. It's a call, a little tug on the leg. It's time. Drop in, drop in, drop into what's right and clear for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I yeah, I just want to appreciate each of you for being here. again, these are not the topics. Well, like a lot of people go to webinars or whatever, like, I want to make more money, I want to fall in love, I want to be a rock star in bed. These are the underlying skills that will let you be, you can still be a rock star in bed. Like, it's not a problem. But these underlying skills will give you the philosophy and the building blocks to create a thriving life, no matter what you're facing and what's going on. So I really admire people like you, and that's one of the reasons I get out of bed in the morning, is for people like you creating the world I want to live in. So yeah, just thank you, and thanks, Rick, for co-creating this together.
Mhm. Thank you all. Um, you're invited to, mm, if it is clear that you're wanting more of the experience of people seeking their own clarity, people leaving some space for others to explore, offering what's clear to them, but without that sense of, well, you have, if you don't choose my clarity, then you're wrong. Um, the space that we're cultivating is at thrivingnow.center. And I'm really grateful for those that are co-creating and cultivating that's a yes. And in your other relationships, as you find people and they're confused, and you invite them to, well, what in this matters to you? And it may come out a little primitive brainy at first. What makes that matter to you? Why is that dear to you? It's a different way of being. And if we allow each other some space to get clarity, we are student teachers in my world. Those of us that are exploring this are student teachers. And an opportunity to share is about, to me, creating a space where we're less and less forcing people into primitive brain decision making and punishing them, and more for allowing enough space for people to live from a place of clarity. We'll find out. And I'm glad I'm not alone in this. Thank you. Thank you all.
Have a
And
great night.
till next time. Bye.